What would you do if the person you were about to marry suddenly told you they were in love with someone else? Someone of the same gender? That's exactly what happened to me, and it left me feeling abandoned and betrayed. My name is Max, and my story is about heartbreak, loneliness, and the harsh reality of losing everything you thought you'd built. I never imagined that the love of my life would walk away from me not just physically, but emotionally as well. My name is Max, and I was preparing for what should have been the happiest day of my life, my wedding to Dana, the woman I thought I'd spend forever with. 7 years. We had been together for 7 years, and during that time, Dana had always been open with me about her bisexuality. It wasn't a problem for me, in fact, I admired her honesty. I knew from the start who she was and never thought twice about it. We built a life together. We bought a house, planned our futures, laughed and loved like we were invincible. We were solid. But all of that, the dreams, the plans, everything, came crashing down just weeks before our wedding. Dana sat me down one night, her eyes teary and her hands shaking. I could sense something was wrong, but I never could have prepared myself for what she said next. "Max, I'm a lesbian," she whispered. The words didn't make sense. My heart stopped as she continued. "I've fallen in love with someone else. That someone else was Tara, a woman Dana had met months before, a woman she'd kept hidden from me." The realization hit me like a freight train. All the love, the laughter, the future we had shared, it was all a lie. My heart shattered, and I could feel the weight of the betrayal suffocating me. Was this the real reason she'd seemed distant lately? Had I been too blind to see it? It felt like everything I'd known, everything I'd built with Dana, was suddenly worthless. I had no idea how to process the pain. How could someone you loved so deeply just walk away? Was this the woman I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with? Or was this the woman who had only ever been a stranger to me, lying right beside me for years? My chest tightened as the emotional weight of her words sunk in. The woman I was about to marry had just told me she couldn't love me anymore, not in the way I had hoped. The night Dana told me, everything seemed surreal. It wasn't just the shock of her coming out as a lesbian, it was the way she delivered the news, almost as if she had been preparing for it, rehearsing her words for days, maybe weeks. And when she told me about Tara, the woman she had been seeing, it felt like the ground beneath me had given way. The pieces of our shared life, the moments we'd cherished, didn't matter anymore. In her eyes, I wasn't her future. She wasn't just uncertain about our relationship, she had fallen in love with someone else. Dana had been upfront about her bisexuality from the beginning. I had never questioned it. But this was different. She wasn't just unsure, she was sure. She wasn't leaving me for another man, no, it was worse. She was leaving me for someone who could give her a love that I never could. A woman. Tara wasn't just another chapter in Dana's life, she was the person Dana had chosen to be with, to start a new life with. I couldn't understand how this could be happening. I wasn't just losing Dana as a partner, I was losing my entire future. I sat there in the living room, my body frozen, unable to respond. My mind raced with a million questions. How long had this been going on? How could I not have seen it? My thoughts spun around, but one thing stood clear: Dana wasn't my Dana anymore. I wasn't enough. For 7 years, I had been her everything, and now I was nothing more than a footnote in her story. The life we had built felt like a fantasy, and all I could do was sit there, trying to make sense of what she was telling me. But it didn't make sense. She was telling me she was choosing someone else, and I had no choice but to listen, as the woman I thought I'd marry slipped away, her heart already with someone else. After Dana left, I couldn't escape the overwhelming numbness that took over. For days, I wandered through the motions of my life, barely able to distinguish between what was real and what felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. It was like I was trapped in a fog, unable to see clearly. I thought about all the conversations we'd had about our future, about the little things we promised each other, traveling together, starting a family, growing old side by side. But now it was all gone, shattered beyond repair. What hurt the most was that Dana had blocked me on everything. Every call I made, every text I sent, was unanswered. It was as if I never existed to her anymore. I couldn't understand why she had to shut me out completely. Was this the only way for her to move on? To sever all ties to the life we had built? I was alone, and the isolation was suffocating. I had been living in a world where Dana was my partner, my best friend. Suddenly, I was invisible. Our friends, the people we'd shared our life with for years, were now on her side. They supported her, congratulated her on finding herself, on finally being true to who she was. I wasn't even given the courtesy of a proper goodbye. It was as if my presence, my pain, didn't matter at all. Each night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was all just a cruel joke. But it wasn't a joke, it was real. I was living through a nightmare, and no one seemed to care. The silence from the people who had once been my support system was deafening. I couldn't talk to anyone about what had happened. They all sided with Dana, praised her bravery for coming out, for embracing her true identity. But what about me? What about the years I had given her? The love I had poured into that relationship? The trust that had been shattered in an instant? No one asked. No one cared to hear my side. I felt like an outsider in my own life. The people I trusted the most were now her cheerleaders, and I was left to drown in my own grief, alone. The numbness gave way to anger, bitterness, and a deep sorrow that consumed me. I couldn't understand why this was happening. I thought I knew Dana better than anyone. But clearly I was wrong. And that realization hit me harder than anything else. She had changed, and I was left picking up the pieces of a life that no longer existed. In the weeks that followed, I found myself completely alone. The people I had considered friends, the family I had built ties with through Dana, all of them turned their backs on me. It was as if the world had turned against me, and I couldn't figure out why. I had supported Dana through everything, her struggles, her dreams, her uncertainties. But now, when I needed them most, they were nowhere to be found. It wasn't just that Dana had blocked me on social media and cut all communication, it was the silence that followed. The people we both knew, mutual friends, even family members, chose to remain silent, opting to celebrate Dana instead. No one reached out to ask how I was doing. No one checked in. It was like they had forgotten I existed the moment Dana came out. Everyone was on her side, applauding her for embracing who she was. And I couldn't blame them. She was the hero of her own story, the one who found herself and had the courage to live her truth. But where did that leave me? As the days dragged on, the isolation became unbearable. I spent most of my time in my apartment, staring out the window, wondering how I had ended up here. How had everything unraveled so quickly? I wasn't the one who had asked for this. I wasn't the one who had changed. Yet, I was the one left in the rubble of a relationship I thought was unshakable. The hardest part was not having anyone to talk to about it. Every conversation seemed to revolve around Dana's journey, her newfound freedom, her happiness. I couldn't bring myself to share my pain with anyone. They wouldn't understand. How could they? No one had ever seen me as more than the guy Dana was with. And now that we were no longer together, I didn't matter to them either. I began to withdraw even further. I stopped reaching out, stopped trying to make connections. I didn't have the energy anymore. The only thing I had left was the emptiness that consumed me every single day. I realized that Dana wasn't just leaving me as a partner, she was leaving me alone in a world where no one cared to help me heal. I was living in a ghost town, a place where my past life had been erased, and I was left to face the future alone, with no one to turn to. As time passed, loneliness crept into my life like a shadow I couldn't shake. It wasn't just the absence of Dana that hurt, it was the absence of everything. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had spent 7 years of my life building a future with her, and now I was expected to just move on. But how could I? She had been my everything, my confidante, my partner, my best friend. With her gone, it felt like a part of me had died too. The house that once felt like home now felt hollow. Every corner held a memory of something we had shared, the place we laughed, cried, dreamed, and built a life. I couldn't step into the kitchen without recalling the mornings we spent making breakfast together or the nights we'd fall asleep on the couch, tangled in each other's arms. But now, the empty spaces where we had once shared moments of joy only served as reminders of how drastically my life had changed. The echoes of our love had faded into silence, and I was left with nothing but the haunting reality of a future that would never come to be. I spent my days locked inside my head, replaying the moments that led to this point. I couldn't stop asking myself the same questions over and over. What went wrong? What did I miss? Every unanswered text, every ignored call, felt like a dagger in my heart. My mind kept cycling through memories, searching for signs, for any clue that might have predicted this outcome. But there was nothing. Dana had always been open about her bisexuality, and I had accepted that part of her without hesitation. So how had we gone from a committed couple to strangers, living in separate worlds? I couldn't make sense of it. And worse, I couldn't escape the overwhelming sense of betrayal that clung to me like a second skin. It was more than just missing her. It was the crushing realization that no one in my life could understand the depth of my pain. Everyone around me seemed to move on with ease, celebrating Dana's journey, while I was left to suffer in silence. No one reached out to check on me, to see if I was okay. The isolation was suffocating, and I began to feel like I was fading into the background of my own life. Dana had her new life, her new happiness, and I had nothing, just a gaping hole where a future once was. One of the hardest things to come to terms with was the realization that Dana hadn't just left me, she had betrayed me in a way I couldn't have anticipated. I had always believed in her honesty. When she told me about her bisexuality early in our relationship, I accepted it because it was part of who she was. But now, everything felt like a lie. Tara wasn't just a passing fling. She wasn't someone Dana had casually dated. Tara was the one, and Dana had made a conscious choice to leave me for her. She had found someone she could love in a way she could never love me. And that hurt more than I could ever put into words. Dana had always told me that I was enough for her, that our love was strong enough to withstand anything. But I wasn't enough to keep her. I wasn't enough to keep her from seeking out a different kind of love, a love I couldn't give her. The fact that she had kept her feelings for Tara a secret for so long made everything worse. How long had she been hiding it from me? How long had she been living a double life, sharing a future with me while secretly falling in love with someone else? The betrayal wasn't just in her leaving, it was in the fact that she had never been fully honest with me. She had built a life with me, talked about our future, while holding back this massive part of herself. She had made promises to me that now felt empty and hollow. Every I love you, every plan, every moment of intimacy we shared suddenly felt like a cruel game she had been playing. I couldn't trust the memories anymore, couldn't trust the person I thought I knew. It wasn't just about her sexuality, it was the secrecy, the dishonesty, the betrayal of my love and trust. It was as if everything I had believed in was nothing but an illusion. Dana wasn't the person I thought she was. And in the wreckage of my broken heart, I had to confront the painful truth. I wasn't just grieving the loss of my partner, I was grieving the loss of a version of her that had never existed. As much as I longed for closure, it never came. I reached out time and again, hoping that Dana would give me some final words, some understanding of why she had left, why she had shut me out completely. But every time I tried, I was met with silence. The unanswered calls, the ignored messages, they all pointed to one thing: she had moved on. It was as though I never existed to her anymore. The woman I had shared my life with for 7 years had erased me from her world without so much as a second thought. It wasn't fair. I deserved answers. I deserved to know what had happened, what had changed in her heart, in her mind, that led to this sudden, brutal ending. But the truth was, Dana had no interest in giving me any. She had made her decision, and that was that. No explanation, no apology, no reason. She had found herself, and I was no longer part of the equation. And the longer I waited for her to reach out, the more I felt the crushing weight of abandonment. I thought about all the times I had been there for her, how I had stood by her when she struggled with her own identity, how I had always been patient, understanding, and loving. And yet, when I needed her the most, she vanished without a trace. There was no emotional farewell, no acknowledgement of the love we had shared. She simply moved on, leaving me to pick up the shattered pieces of my heart, my life, and my sense of self-worth. The lack of closure haunted me. I was left with more questions than answers, and it made the pain even harder to bear. The silence from Dana was deafening. The absence of any explanation or apology left a gaping wound that couldn't heal. It was as though the love I had given her meant nothing. In the end, all I had left were the remnants of a relationship that no longer existed, and the bitter truth that I would never get the closure I so desperately needed. Letting go was harder than I ever imagined. I thought time would heal the wounds, but the pain lingered in every corner of my life, like a dark cloud I couldn't escape. Every time I tried to move forward, it felt like Dana's ghost was right there, standing over my shoulder, reminding me of what we had lost. It wasn't just the relationship, it was everything. It was the life I thought we would share, the future we had talked about, the dreams we had built together. I tried to distract myself with work, with friends, with anything that might take my mind off the ache that never seemed to fade. But nothing worked. It was like I was walking around in a fog, disconnected from everything and everyone. I couldn't bring myself to feel excited about anything. The passion I once had for life had been drained from me, leaving behind only a hollow shell of the person I used to be. It was as if Dana had taken a part of me with her when she left, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it back. I spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I would ever be able to move on. Could I ever find someone else who made me feel the way Dana did? Could I ever trust again? The fear of never being able to love fully again haunted me. I couldn't imagine sharing my life with anyone else, not after everything I had been through with her. But deep down, I knew that I had to let go. I couldn't keep holding on to something that no longer existed. I couldn't keep letting the past dictate my future. Letting go wasn't a one-time decision, it was a constant battle. Every day I had to remind myself that it was okay to grieve, but it was also okay to move forward. Slowly, over time, I began to see that the person I was before Dana wasn't gone. I could find my way back to myself. I had to let go of the dream of us, the life we would never have, and embrace the reality of my own future. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but I knew that letting go was the only way to truly heal. In the aftermath of Dana's departure, I found myself facing a loss that went beyond just the end of a relationship. It was as if I had lost an entire world. Dana wasn't just my partner, she was a part of my social network, my support system. We had shared mutual friends and family, and when she left, it felt like the ties that had once bound us together were severed completely. I was no longer welcome in the places I had once felt safe. Mutual friends, people I had considered close, distanced themselves from me. They rallied around Dana, celebrating her newfound freedom, while I was left in the shadows. It felt like I was the one being erased from existence. In conversations, I would hear about how happy Dana was, how she had moved on, and how she had found herself. No one asked about me. No one cared to check in on how I was doing. The isolation was suffocating. At family gatherings, I found myself awkwardly standing in the background, pretending to smile, pretending everything was okay when inside, I was falling apart. Dana's family, who had once embraced me as one of their own, now seemed distant, as if I was a stranger. They supported her, and in their eyes, I was the one who had lost my place in the family. The worst part was that no one seemed to care enough to ask how I was holding up. I felt like I had become invisible, a ghost in my own life. I had to face the painful reality that in losing Dana, I had lost more than just a partner. I had lost the foundation of my social circle, the people I had once considered family. And the worst part was that no one was willing to extend a hand to help me up. Instead, they celebrated Dana's new life, her new path, as if my suffering didn't matter. Healing didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a linear process, and it certainly wasn't easy. There were days when I felt like I had made progress, only to be dragged back into the depths of sorrow the next day. I found myself constantly questioning whether I would ever be able to find happiness again, or if I would be trapped in this cycle of grief forever. But somewhere, deep down, I knew that I couldn't stay in the darkness forever. I started small. I reached out to old friends I had lost touch with over the years, seeking connection where I could. I focused on my work, threw myself into projects that gave me a sense of purpose. Slowly, I began to rediscover pieces of myself that had been buried under the weight of the breakup. I realized that I wasn't defined by Dana, that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet. It wasn't easy, and it took time, but I started to find my way back to who I was before I had met her. I also sought therapy to help me process the emotions I had been bottling up. Talking about the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the isolation helped me release some of the pain. I had to learn to forgive not Dana, not for her leaving, but for myself. I had to forgive myself for not seeing the signs, for allowing myself to be blindsided by her departure. It wasn't about excusing her actions, it was about finding peace within myself so that I could let go of the anger and hurt that had consumed me. As the months went by, I found myself growing stronger, more resilient. I began to realize that my worth wasn't tied to Dana or anyone else. I was worthy of love, of happiness, and of a life full of possibility. Slowly, I started to imagine a future that didn't include her. It wasn't easy to envision at first, but as time passed, I began to see that the end of one chapter didn't mean the end of my story. And that, in the end, was the hardest lesson to learn, that I could be okay without Dana. It took time, and it took effort, but I was healing. I was moving forward. And, most importantly, I was finding myself again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and any experiences you might want to share. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about love, loss, and everything in between. Until next time.